session of the Board of County Commissioners, April 25th board meeting. Welcome to Harris Hall. Ms. Mokryski, we have a full agenda this afternoon, and we're going to begin with the item 10A from Public Works. It's going to be a second reading and public hearing on ordinance number 2302 in the matter of amending Lane Code Chapter 15 roads to enable right-of-way setbacks to be established in a board-approved design concept and to remove the additional setback requirements from the eastern portion of the Blue River and recognize the platted right-of-way as a planned right-of-way for building setbacks in the downtown portion of the Blue River community and declaring an emergency. And Mr. Mokryski, I'll ask you to, before I go into the script, I'll ask you to introduce your panel.
Well, Commissioners, you all know Becky Taylor, our Senior Transportation Planner in Public Works. And so I don't know if you want to do the script first or...
Well, I didn't see you here. Did you all know that Becky in 2016 was named the outstanding elected official for all of Lane County by LCOG? Thank you for that.
Thank you,
Jennifer.
Chair and Commissioners. So I'm Becky Taylor. I'm a Senior Transportation Planner with Lane County. And I do have a PowerPoint presentation. I'll ask Diana Jones for assistance running the slides remotely.
And may I ask a question quickly? Is Mr. Cheney online, or do you know if Mr. Cheney will be with
I
us?
believe Jim Cheney County Council is attending virtually.
Very good. And can I have a confirmation of that? Or when that does happen, please give me confirmation, Diana. Ms. Taylor, go ahead. Thank you.
Chair Farr, I do not see that he has logged on yet. He did get a virtual invitation, however. I can confirm that.
Very good. Then, Ms. Taylor, I'll ask you, would you would you prefer to wait a few minutes to see if Mr. Cheney just joined us, or can we proceed?
Thank you, Chair. I think we can proceed. I've been working very closely with Mr. Cheney on the proposed ordinance to make sure that it meets all of the legal requirements. Also in the audience with me today is Rob Woodard. He's Lane County's Special Utility District Engineer. He's managing the water and wastewater projects in Blue River. And I've been working closely with Rob to ensure sufficient right-of-way space. So if there's questions related to that, he's available to pop up and answer questions as well. The staff report was to come exclusively from me, so we could proceed with that if you'd like.
Very good. And then if I may remind you, this is a public hearing on this date, April 25th, 2023. And the proceedings will be a report by staff, which will be followed by public testimony. Ms. Taylor.
So the staff report, thank you, Diana. So we are asking the board to consider approval of this ordinance to adopt amendments to Lane Code Chapter 15 roads. The proposed amendments relate to building setbacks from the right-of-way in the community of Blue River. Next slide, please, Diana. First, an explanation about right-of-way setbacks. Lane Code Chapter 15 establishes minimum right-of-way widths, and the code minimums are often wider than existing right-of-way widths. It is from these code-required right-of-way widths that land use development setbacks are then measured, regulating how close a building can be to the road. These code minimums, however, are based on maximum needs. So this diagram, I know it's difficult to read, but I'll explain the intent. It shows how the code-required 80-foot minimum right-of-way width for a rural county collector road is intended to accommodate a wide range of characteristics, such as traffic volumes and whether the terrain is level or steep. The travel lanes on the table there, they range between 11 and 12 feet. Shoulder widths range between 2 and 8 feet, and beyond that, various widths for clear zones and side slopes. In the case of downtown Blue River, the characteristics point to a narrower right-of-way need due to lower traffic volumes and relatively flat terrain. The speed limits are also lower in Blue River, ranging between 35 and 45 miles an hour, whereas most rural roads have 55-mile-an-hour speed limits, and the 55-mile-an-hour speeds require more setback to establish a clear zone so that out-of-control vehicles don't hit a fixed object, which increases crash severity. Next slide, please. So the actual right-of-way widths for measuring land development setbacks is what this slide is all about. The existing right-of-way widths in Blue River are less than required by current code. The existing right-of-way width of Blue River Drive, which is the main road through Blue River, is 60 feet, which is 20 feet less than the required code. This discrepancy between existing conditions and current codes is creating problems for people trying to rebuild, especially in the downtown area of Blue River where the lot sizes are smaller, and that's why I'm here today. The proposed code amendments before you today would remedy these problems. The majority of people I've spoken with support these amendments and are eagerly awaiting these amendments to rebuild. A few people, however, have expressed concern that we may be giving up space needed for utilities, which is why Rob Woodard is here joining me to give you comfort there in your decision. I believe that we can meet the transportation and utility needs within the existing right-of-way widths. This slide, there's a Profile A, Profile B, and these are just showing examples of how parking, sidewalks, utilities can fit within the existing 60 feet of right-of-way. But these are just examples, and we're currently working with the community to develop a design concept for Blue River Drive, and this includes coordination with water and wastewater projects in Blue River. Next slide, please. The solution set is rather surgical. It involves 4 specific code sections, and they're listed on this slide in the order that they appear in your draft ordinance included in your agenda packet. First, in the definitions section of Chapter 15 at 15.01020, a new definition is proposed to define design concept. This is a term that's used in the code, but it has not yet been defined. Second, at Lane Code 15.07001C4, a new code provision is recommended to base right-of-way setbacks in the downtown Blue River on the existing right-of-way widths that were established formally through the platting process, rather than a different, wider right-of-way width currently prescribed by our code. Third, at Lane Code 15.0702B, a new code provision is recommended to base right-of-way setbacks on a board-approved design concept. Currently, the code is disconnected from the design concept process with regard to setbacks. Fourth, at Lane Code 15.0831, the existing 10-foot additional setback listed for Blue River Drive, which is meant to provide extra space for steep topography necessitating slope easements, is proposed to be removed from the downtown portion of Blue River Drive, which is relatively flat and doesn't meet the intent of the code. So that was a really quick run through, and I will go over each of those 4 amendments in the next 4 slides. But first, just for full transparency, we did want to point out that 2 of the amendments listed as numbers 3 and 4 on this slide, so that if you can't read the slide, that had to do with the setbacks being based on a design concept and removing the 10-foot setback from downtown. Those were reviewed by the Planning Commission. They held a public hearing on February 7th of this year. The Planning Commission supported the amendments, and they recommended clarification be added to the amendment concerning design concept. Therefore, we clarified the language, and that's why we added that new definition of design concept, which is listed as number 1 on this slide. So that didn't specifically go to the Planning Commission, but it was consistent with their recommendation. The new item that we weren't aware of at the time of the Planning Commission proceedings, because we were so focused on correcting code challenges specific to Blue River Drive, we learned that the code requirements applicable to the side streets in the downtown area were also limiting rebuilding. So to solve that problem, we added the amendment listed as number 2 on this slide, and that's to recognize the existing platted right-of-way in downtown Blue River for building setback purposes. We confirmed that that is not required to go back to the Planning Commission, and the reason why it was important for us to confirm that procedural requirement is because rebuilding efforts are depending on these code amendments, and we didn't want to create any additional procedural delay. The urgency is so great here that we're also requesting an immediate effective date. Having to wait an additional 30 days for the ordinance to become effective affects the Blue River Library ability to get their plans approved in time to secure a contractor for construction this summer. The theme here is that all of the amendments recognize that Blue River is not typical but special, And this amendment package focuses on the right-of-way setbacks intended to meet the unique needs of Blue River. Next slide, please. This next slide talks about the First Amendment, which is design concept definition, and that's pretty straightforward, just adding a definition. But just wanted to point out that the board has approved design concepts in the past. Recent examples include Territorial Highway, East 30th Avenue, and Gillum Road. And we are in the process of working with the community to develop a design concept for Blue River Drive, and we hope to have that ready for the board's approval later this summer. Next slide, please. This next slide talks about the code amendment to base right-of-way setbacks in downtown Blue River on the existing right-of-way widths that were established formally through the platting process. The platted right-of-way widths have been in place for over 100 years, and so no surprise, they're narrower than the current code standards. Applying current code standards create challenges for people trying to rebuild after the Holiday Farm fire. This amendment would recognize the existing right-of-way widths rather than the typical code standards. Although they are narrower than existing code standards, we believe they are wide enough to meet the transportation and utility needs. I've talked about design examples for Blue River Drive, but to give you some reassurance about the other streets, the side streets platted as 40 feet in width, but our code requires 50 feet. So that 10-foot discrepancy is a big impact on adjacent properties, but it's relatively insignificant for right-of-way purposes. For example, a travel width for two-way traffic, a minimum is 20 feet of width. And so it's easy to see that a 20-foot roadway fits within a 40-foot right-of-way. That still leaves 10 feet on each side. If you were to provide 5-foot sidewalks, that leaves 5 more feet for other things like a planter strip and utilities. And for that matter, utilities can be placed under the road or almost anywhere within the right-of-way. We do not think we are giving up public interest by basing the setbacks on the existing right-of-way. Even if we applied the wider current code right-of-way setback, that land area couldn't be used for right-of-way purposes until we actually acquired the right-of-way. And it's difficult to imagine trying to purchase right-of-way in the downtown area of Blue River where lots are already constrained. Also, as you may know, Lane County has a survey project to replace the monuments that define the right-of-way and property boundaries which were destroyed by the fire. Recognizing these boundaries is key to supporting rebuilding Blue River after the Holiday Farm fire. Next slide, please. The third element of the code amendment package is basing a right-of-way setback based on a board-approved design concept. And so again, the purpose of a right-of-way setback, which is the focus of all of these amendments, is to protect space needed for future roadway widening, to make sure buildings are set back from the future right-of-way rather than the existing right-of-way, so that buildings aren't located too close to the road when it's widened. And the best way to determine right-of-way needs is through a customized design that fits the surrounding context, and those are called design concepts. We have a process for creating those through a public involvement process, and those are formally approved by the board as a board order. When we determine the customized right-of-way need, that's what we should be applying as the future right-of-way. That's what this code amendment would enable. And currently, the code is disconnected from the design concept process with regard to setbacks. This particular amendment does have broader applications than Blue River, and this could be applied countywide or on any road that has a board-approved design concept. And again, as I mentioned previously, we're working with the community to develop a design concept for Blue River Drive to further inform future right-of-way needs, to support rebuilding the road, and to meet the needs of the community. And then my last slide, Diana. Okay. So fourth and finally, Blue River Drive is listed with a handful of other roads in our code as potentially needing wider widths because of topographical constraints. There are steep ditches and embankments on Blue River Drive, but not in the downtown portion. And as you can see on this street view photo from 2014, the downtown area is relatively flat. It does not need slope easements. In acknowledgement that application of these extra widths requires more site-specific review, there is a waiver process currently in the code, But rather than require property owners to individually submit waivers, which is additional paperwork and process, we think it just makes sense to remove the downtown portion from this requirement. That concludes the staff presentation. We're available for questions from the board now before the public hearing to respond to any questions you may have about the proposed amendments, and after the public hearing to respond to any additional questions resulting from public comment.
Thank you for the staff report, Ms. Taylor. I'll remind everyone that the board's decision, should there be a decision today, may be appealed to the Land Use Board of Appeals in accordance with ORS Chapter 197. At this point, I'll call for disclosure of any commissioners for abstentions due to conflict of interest or biases. From my left, Commissioner Lovell.
No conflicts.
Commissioner Buck.
I will, at least at minimum, declare that I've spoken to lots of residents about this particular issue, but I do not believe that is a bias in any way.
Thank you, Commissioner. And along the same lines, I'll say that at least one person in this room, a resident I have spoken to, and that's Don Cayley, sitting right over there. Other than that, I don't believe it's a bias. Vice Chair Trieger.
No conflicts or bias, thank you.
No conflicts or bias.
Very well. Then at this point, I'll call for any challenges to the board's qualifications to hear the matter. Going, is that? No, nobody. Okay. Then we've heard the report by staff. So at this point, without any objection, I will open the public hearing. Public hearing is open, and looking at the sign-up sheet, not a great deal of interest in talking today, so we have no one signed up for public testimony. Ms. Jones, has anyone signed up online for public testimony on this matter?
One moment, Chair Farr, I will ask the attendees. If I do see 2 people have signed up to be part of this meeting, but we do have 2 public hearings today. If you have registered for this meeting to speak on this particular topic, please raise your virtual hand and I will call on you at this time. Again, this is, oh, there a hand went up, just one moment. Oh, I just lost my screen, one sec. I do see Aiden Wilson and Mary Sherman have both raised their hands. Aiden, I will call on you and unmute your microphone and you may begin your public testimony.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. Each testimony will be allowed 3 minutes.
Hello, my name's Aiden Wilson. I'm a Blue River resident and treasurer of the O'Brien Memorial Library. After the fire, when we began fundraising and planning to build a new library for the future of Blue River, one of our priorities was to provide meeting space both inside the library and outside in our garden area to hold a variety of community events. We want to have a place where neighbors can come for ice cream socials, educational classes, book clubs, etc. In order to provide this opportunity, we need places for people to park. We need sidewalks and ramps to be ADA compliant. Basically, to achieve our goals, we need every available foot of space to make everything fit. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wilson.
Thank you for your public comment. Our next speaker is Mary Sherman. Mary, I will unmute your microphone and you may begin your public comment. I will reset the timer. Mary, I do show.
Yes, I'm here. I just had to unmute. Sorry. So
Thank you.
I am Mary Sherman. I'm the secretary on the O'Brien Memorial Library Board of Directors. And in the past, I have also worked at the clinic in Blue River for almost 30 years. So I wanted to speak directly, though, to the library needs. And we at the library support the code amendment proposed by the county to return the right-of-way widths to the originally platted widths. The library building was intended to enhance the main street, and we plan to have sidewalks and other enhancements, as Iden recorded, to increase walkability and connection with the community. The main properties in Blue River, our site is very tight as far as the size of what the building needs to be, and anything to decrease the amount of property will impact directly not only our exterior, but also our interior of our building. We need a sufficient area in order to have a safe outdoor event space. We plan to have multiple events, both recreational, social, and for learning purposes. We plan to have a native outdoor gardens to educate the people in the area on how to plant native plants, which will help with conservation and other things. We also plan to have classes. We can have events that will help to bring in income for the library to help support ourselves, as we have no tax base or any other source of revenue other than what we can generate with our work. We also are going to be a community presence to help support our community with for the purpose of having not just books, but also things like Wi-Fi and internet, which is still a real challenge for many of our residents. We are going to have free computers to loan out and to use in the library. We have a meeting room that has enough for 30 people to meet there. So it'll be the only place in Blue River that has meeting space. I see that as being crucial for developing and helping to develop the rest of the town of Blue River. So we have many needs, and our building has already totally been designed by our Pivot Architecture group that is in charge of that. And taking away any of the space that we have now will definitely impact our plans that have already been developed. And we really would like to start building now. So any delay in that by having to redesign and start over would be very counterproductive. And plus, just our funding sources are very limited. And with expenses, with inflation rising so much, we just don't have more money to redo this again. So we are very much asking you to understand the vital importance of our library as it is currently designed. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sherman. And thank you, Ms. Jones, for managing the online queue. Anyone else sign up online?
So far, there is no one else signed up online.
Thank you. Then I'll look around Harris Hall. Did anyone enter the room who wishes to provide testimony? Please step forward, state your name for the record and your rough address.
My name is Melanie Stanley. My address is 51748 Blue River Drive. I have a business that used to stand at that address. Without these code amendments, I can't put my building back up because I can't have parking. I can't have a front door. I can't have about half of my building. So these are super important. If we don't get this, I won't rebuild, which my building, anybody from the community will tell you, is pretty much the hub of the community. It was the unofficial town hall, and everybody kind of gathered there. So I would really, really, really appreciate if we could get this done, as well as for the library to get rebuilt. I'm also on the board of the Upper McKenzie Fire Department, and we're trying to get our permits and finish that process to get rebuilt also on the same stretch of road that the library is building on. So we're also looking forward to this code amendment going through. So thank you.
Excellent. Thanks, Ms. Stanley. Anyone else in Harris Hall wish to provide testimony? Please step forward and identify yourself.
My name's Anthony Abel, and I'm at 51757 Blue River Drive, which is downtown as well. And I'll just reiterate what everyone said. Yeah, it's essential to have these amendments, and I appreciate your staff's work on this. And for me to rebuild, and I'm quite sure many of my neighbors as well, this has to happen. So thank you so much.
Thank you for your testimony, Mr. Abel. Anyone else in Harris Hall wish to provide testimony? I am seeing none. At this point, then, let's look to the board for any discussion. Look to the board for discussion, and I'll call on you first, Commissioner Buck.
You know, I'll always have something to say.
About this topic, yes.
I want to appreciate Becky Taylor for your work. I know you did a lot of community involvement in this prior to bringing it to the board today. I also want to recognize Council Jim Chaney, who really did a great deal of work and recognized that we had to write things in a certain way to make this really happen. And for those in the audience and online who are building, this is absolutely essential to the rebuilding process up there. And I urge an aye vote from my fellow commissioners.
Well, thank you, Commissioner Buck. And before I ask for any further testimony, without objection from anyone, I will close the public hearing and ask for any further staff response.
And thank you.
Thank you. Then I'll look back to the board for discussion or comments. Commissioner Lovall.
I see no reason not to rebuild. This is all very good. You did a great job looking at it. I appreciate that you found not necessarily a loophole, but a way to rebuild something that was very important to the community up there, upriver. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Further discussion? Commissioner Seneca.
Yes, Becky, I'd like to thank you and your team. It was the first field trip I've got to go on in a long time, and it's absolutely essential that we vote for this. And as I'm looking through your slides, the one picture from 2014 is taken from a bridge that is the same width as the road. I mean, this is the common sense stuff that I love to see you guys working on, so thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Commissioner. Further discussion? Vice Chair.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to express my appreciation to folks from the community coming in person in particular, and anyone that's watching, but particularly the time it takes. Y'all have been through so much, and to take the time to physically come down here and let us make eye contact with you, and appreciate all you've been through. Every time we get updates related to the Holiday Farm fire, I'm just so struck by how deeply impacted how many people were. So thank you for being here.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I'll very briefly say, Ms. Mokryski, Ms. Taylor, this is an example of your listening to the public. A few words were stated, a few very direct words, and you responded. Not just did you respond, but you responded in very quick order in order to allow some of the permits to go forward more quickly. The net result is going to be more buildings in Blue River sooner. So very well done. Any further discussion? Then I have nothing further to do than to ask for a motion. Commissioner Buck.
I'll move approval of the second reading and public hearing for ordinance 23-02 as presented.
And does that include passage?
Yes, please.
Includes passage. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Moved by Commissioner Buck and seconded by Vice Chair Trieger. Discussion to the motion? I'm seeing none. Mr. Mokryski, this is an ordinance 2302.
Commissioner Seneca,
Yes.
Commissioner Lovall,
Aye.
Commissioner Trieger,
Aye.
Commissioner Buck,
Aye.
and Commissioner Farr.
Aye. Passes unanimously. And applause was heard around the room. Thank you very much. We'll, while we clear the room, Mr. Mokryski will get set up for our second public hearing, which I don't have a specific script for, so I'll just,
I stand it.
did you send it?
Yep.
Then,
Chair Farr, I did send you the script. Would you like me to pull it up?
yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Give me one moment. I'll bring it up if you give me one moment. Thanks.
I actually have it. Never mind. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Actually, that script is the same script that I had before, so
Okay. I will grab it. Just give me 1 second. I stopped looking when you said you had it. Give me 1 second. So,
There you go.
I keep pulling up 2302.
No, there's two. I'm looking.
okay. I have the script. Would you like me to mail it to you or read it for you?
And I apologize for not having it. I keep pulling up 2302 on here.
It's the same, scroll through the email, it's attached underneath. There were two consecutive emails. Here.
I believe Commissioner Trieger, do you have it in front of you?
I do.
We have it, so
I do,
No.
and I'm sharing it here.
Vice Chair Trieger, carry the script.
Well, here you go.
And I keep getting 2302 on this, and I apologize to this people in May. So we're on Order 2304-2511 in the matter of the surrender of South 6th Street, County Road 538 of the City of Cottage Grove with a public hearing. Mr. Mokrahewski, I'll move forward with this. It's a public hearing on Order 230425, as I explained earlier, and the public hearing is being held pursuant to ORS 373.270 to allow for public testimony prior to the Board of Commissioners' action of approving or denying the City of Cottage Grove's request to transfer the jurisdiction of South 6th Street to the city. Now, if approved, the board can adopt a final order on the surrender, which will transfer jurisdiction of South 6th to the City of Cottage Grove. So I'll ask for ex parte contact or for abstentions due to conflict of interest or biases. And begin with Commissioner Lovall.
No conflicts or biases.
Commissioner Buck.
None.
Commissioner Senega.
Nope.
Vice Chair Trigger.
None?
And I have none. Mr. Blumey, let's hear the report by staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Farr. Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm here this afternoon to present a request submitted by the City of Cottage Grove asking that Lane County surrender jurisdiction of South 6th Street, County Road number 538, to the city pursuant to Cottage Grove City Council Resolution number 2090. Cities can request jurisdictional transfer from governmental bodies pursuant to ORS Chapter 373 procedures, which include conducting a public hearing to allow for public testimony prior to action by the board. The Board of County Commissioners pursuant to Order 2303-2108 set today's date and time to conduct this public hearing. ORS Chapter 373 also requires public notice of this hearing be posted or published. The time and date of this hearing was posted along South 6th Street on March 23rd, 2023. The portion of South 6th Street being considered for jurisdictional transfer is located within Cottage Grove city limits and consists of approximately 900 feet of right-of-way. The majority of the section being surrendered has a 50-foot right-of-way width, with the exception of the intersection at McKinley Avenue, where the right-of-way width expands to accommodate the pedestrian ADA ramps. Surrendering South 6th Street to the city will allow them to maintain, develop, and improve the street to the city's specifications, standards, and timetables, and will relieve Lane County's responsibility to provide maintenance and permitting activities along the portion of the road to be surrendered. The Public Works Director has provided a director's report attached as Exhibit B to the order, which recommends the board to approve the city's request. In summary, the Public Works Director, and Lane County staff favorably recommend approving this action to surrender jurisdiction of the road to City of Cottage Grove. This concludes my report. I'm available to answer any questions you may have.
And thank you, Mr. Blumey. At this point, I will open the public hearing. Do we have anyone signed up for the public hearing? None in person at Harris Hall. Ms. Jones, anyone signed up online for this public hearing?
That's my mute button. Chair Farr, I do not have anyone signed up.
Thank you. Then based on all of that information and feedback, Mr. Blumey, any additional comments?
None.
Okay, thank you. So we'll look to the board for any discussion. I am seeing none. Then Vice Chair Trigger.
Chair, I'll move approval of Order 23-04-25-10 in the matter of the surrender of South 6th Street, County Road number 538, to the City of Cottage Grove, with a public hearing today. Yes, I'm just looking at yes, lots of other numbers, but I think that covers it.
I'll second.
All right. Well, we've conducted the public hearing. Moved and seconded. Moved by Commissioner Trigger, Vice Chair Trigger, and seconded by Commissioner Buck. Discussion to the motion? None. Then, barring further discussion, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Passes unanimously. Thank you for your forbearance.
Thank you.
And thank you for your assistance. Then, Ms. Mokrahewski will move along to item 10C, which is a resolution order 2304-2511 in the matter of approving the Laura Street upgrade project design concept and a resolution establishing necessity pursuant to ORS 35.610 and ordering the acquisition of interest necessary for the Laura Street upgrade project. And Mr. Mokrahewski, I'll ask to introduce your panel, please.
Thank you. We have Olaf Sweetman here, our Project Management Associate in Engineering and Construction Services, correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Welcome, Mr. Sweetman.
Thank you. Yes, Chair Farr and Commissioners. So I was going to attempt to share the presentation here. And let me see how I do that. So, screen. Okay, and then okay, looks like that's working. All right, so this is the Laura Street Upgrade Project. Let me move to the next slide. This shows the project location. It's in Springfield. It is just west of Pioneer Parkway, and it is just south of Harlow Road / Hayden Bridge Way, and just north of the freeway, 126, 105. And this shows the proposed cross-section, and these are the proposed improvements. So it would have sidewalks on either side, stormwater treatment swales, 6-foot bike lanes, one travel lane either direction, and then a center lane for turning. And our plans are to complete design this year, and we are hoping to construct next year. So this shows what the Laura Street currently looks like. There really are no improvements such as sidewalks or bike lanes. There is one section next to a assisted living facility called Bayberry Commons that is fully improved, but that is a short section of the street. It does have a relatively high traffic volume. I think there's quite a bit of traffic that probably cuts through to the freeway from here. As you can see, it only has 2 lanes. There is no center lane, so that can cause quite a bit of conflict when people are trying to turn. And then this shows the existing jurisdiction. So it may be kind of hard to see here, but the blue is county jurisdiction, the green is City of Springfield jurisdiction, and the dividing line is at the driveway for a manufactured home community called Monteloma. And we originally were going to improve just the county right-of-way, but that would have left about 200 feet between that driveway and then where the improvements pick up again, which is right next to the ODOT building, if any of you know where that is. And we decided to add that additional 200 feet, and that is being funded by the city. And then once this project is complete, we actually have a signed agreement with the city. They will take over jurisdiction of all of Laura Street. This shows the expected property impacts. So as it states there, the current right-of-way is typically only 60 feet wide. And that cross-section I showed you in the second slide would require 70 feet of width. So that shows that we will need right-of-way. And all of the properties outlined in red, we expect we would need a permanent right-of-way acquisition from those properties. And then there's 4 other properties that we require temporary easements during construction. And so there's a total of 13 properties that would require permanent right-of-way. And then the maximum acquisition width would be 10 feet from the property that is on the bottom west side there. This shows expected impacts to trees. So there are 2 mature trees that are shown on the right-hand east side of that photo there. And the little drawing, it's a cutout from the plans, shows where those trees end up relative to the improvements. So they would be actually like on the edge of the bike lane towards the travel lane based on the improvements. So it would be very difficult to avoid taking those trees as long as we have a center turn lane is my view of this. And then there would be 4 smaller trees and some large shrubs that also would need to be removed. And then this just highlights a couple other aspects of the project that are included. So the city of Springfield has a stormwater system that goes through the project, and they have plans to replace that system. Since we're going to be reconstructing the road anyway, we thought that we should go ahead and replace that portion of the system that's within the road footprint. So it's sort of a favor to the city, and again, they are funding that portion of the project. And then this just shows that we're going to have a small area of off-site stormwater treatment, and that's just because there's a requirement that we treat the entire area of the project, and that's not really possible to treat every square foot. So we're adding a small area, and this is the ODOT building that you see the parking lot up there. So it's very close to the project. It's just a little bit south of it. This summarizes our public involvement efforts. So we have had one public hearing at the Transportation Advisory Committee. We had 2 people testify. I attached a summary of that testimony to the report. One person was strongly in favor of the project. One person who lives in Motoloma Manufactured Home Community was concerned about the restrictions on traffic during construction. Our current concept, so we have not developed the traffic control plan. Our current concept is we probably would route traffic one way during construction, and that would be northbound. So he expressed concern that people who are used to going southbound would be forced to go northbound. But Motoloma is close to the south end of the project, and so that would only be necessary, if that is the concept we go with, that would only be necessary once we're working from that point southward, which would be the minority of the project. So that was the other testimony received. Have received 2 other written comments. Those are also included in the meeting packet. And then this photo shows the project signs that we've had up since last year that direct people to the project website. So there's one on either end of the project. This is the link for the project website, and then that webpage includes a form for signing up for an email list. And then we've also done 2 mailings, at least, to all of the properties that you see highlighted on that map. And we chose a very large notification area at the request of the city of Springfield. And that concludes my presentation on the Laura Street Upgrade Project.
Thank you, Mr. Sweetman. Then I'll look to the board for questions or comments. Vice Chair Trieger.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the presentation. Just briefly, quick question, just curiosity, do you have an estimate of the duration of the traffic impacts? So that was raised.
I do not at this point. Like I said, so I neglected to mention that based on that testimony we received, we committed to going to the Motoloma manufacturing community and presenting to them once we do have a traffic control plan and explaining what it is and why, and then also an expected time that it would be in effect.
Great, thank you. And I figured
Yeah.
I think we do a great job of communicating with folks about impacts, but since you did get that one piece of feedback, I wanted to ask. And then the other, if I'm following this, the jurisdictional transfer would happen, so any replacement of trees or other plantings would then be on the city to decide about, right?
Yes, yeah, once the project is complete, then we are going to surrender it to the city. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Further discussion? Commissioner Laval, did I see your hand? Yeah.
No, I don't have much comment on the fact that Laura Street's a heavy flowed traffic. It's also increasing in industrial load and trucks and deliveries. And then also on the corner right by the freeway, there's a 44,000 square foot manufacturing facility going in there. So this is well due and would serve the community well. Thank you for your time.
Further discussion? Commissioner Seneca.
And just real quick, it sounded like, after reading through some of the public comment, that the majority of the people were more than willing to give up property for the traffic to flow smoother through there and maybe less horn honking. They're trying to enjoy a barbecue, so sounds like a well-needed upgrade.
Yeah.
Right on, thank you. 48 years ago, I lived in the neighborhood. The neighborhood has changed a lot since then.
Oh, yes.
Further discussion from the board? I'm seeing none, then do I have a motion?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion, Chair.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion that we pass order number 23042511 in the matter of approving Lore Street Upgrade Design Project Concept and a resolution establishing the necessary pursuant to ORS 35.610.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Do you want to read the rest for the acquisition?
And order, I was kind of cut off, but I thought,
All
okay,
the
a little
words.
pause there, too long. And ordering the acquisition of interest necessary for the Lore Street Upgrade Project PM and NBA 721 dated 2020 and dated 4/5/2022.
I will second.
Moved by Commissioner Lovell, seconded by Vice Chair Trieger. Discussion to the motion? I'm seeing no discussion. I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Thank you very much for your presentation. And the upgrade on my old neighborhood. Update on my old neighborhood. Then we'll move down to item 11, which is Commissioner's business. And first item is 11A, a work session and order 230425-12 in the matter of recommending a Lane County Commissioner to the Board of Directors of the Association of Oregon Counties for the position reserved for member counties with population of 250,000 or more. And once again, we have Mr. Adams, Steve Adams.
Good afternoon, Chair Farr and Commissioners. So at your direction, I have returned with some additional information regarding the appointment for the position of Board of Directors for the largest counties. Specifically, as we prepared the board for this work session, we made sure to include the bylaws within the package. So I am here, Chair Farr, and prepared to assist any way that I can.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. We've all had a chance 2 weeks now to update ourselves, to bring ourselves up to snuff, I guess, on what this actually means. So I'll look for any questions or comments from the board. Then another part of the assignment, which actually isn't listed in the order, wasn't really a part of the assignment. It was just a general discussion on how do we report back on boards. We can cover that at a subsequent work session or just informally. I'll tell you how I'm going to report
Chair
back.
Farr?
Yes.
Chair Farr, this work session is to cover that part, and then after that, you'll go into the order. It's a work session and an order.
A work session and order. Okay, so the work session is to cover that part. Well, we are all assigned some by choice, some by just straight assignment, different boards and commissions. Some of them are statutory, some of them are internal, and some of them are just a part of the regular process of county government. So I'm assigned to the Mental Health Advisory Committee, and they specifically asked me if I would report back to the board after each meeting. And so the discussion that when I added that item to this through what became 11A, I really wanted to talk a little bit about our responsibility, should we have any, about reporting back what happens in the board meetings where we are representing the Board of County Commissioners, either as a liaison, as we often are with statutory committees, or as a voting member. So is there any discussion on that? I'm just going to say that I choose to, at the behest of the Mental Health Advisory Committee, actually give a 2 or 3 minute report, usually in the Commissioner's business section of the meeting subsequent to the actual committee meeting. So any discussion?
Sure, yeah, I would desire that as well. I think it's important for us to be on the same page of how we present our board to the Association of Oregon Counties. And I think it would be transparent for the public to know where we're standing on important matters and for matters that are of large concern and large budgetary items. I think I'd like that report.
Okay. Vice Chair Trieger?
I want to clarify this item. Are we talking about committees writ large? I thought this was AOC specific and AOC committee work.
It was committees at large was a request that I had made, and it's not really delineated in Commissioner's business. So I guess it could cover both, Vice Chair Trieger. Now, we'd had some discussion in between that it could potentially be added as a just a committee report back as an item under Commissioner's business, perhaps once every month or once every quarter. So,
Is there, Diana, we have an open assignment related to this, and now I'm not 100% clear. I know we had to come back to the item about appointing a designee to the AOC board, and then that got
Correct.
mixed in with a
I will-
conversation about committees. Do you have the committee assignments available? Would that be?
I do.
Thank you.
I do. I will read the assignment to you. This is an assignment made by Commissioner Lovell last week when we had this on the agenda, and the item failed. Sorry, I'm just getting the assignments up. I wasn't prepared to get them up, but I do have them. Just a second. Let you guys talk amongst yourselves for a second until I get it up. Just a second. Oh, wait, there I have it. Sorry, just was taking time. So the assignment by Commissioner Lovell was to recommend a work session for the commissioners to think about the specific AOC job assignments and identify the best candidate for this particular job as a team. We were also to discuss other roles of commissioners that are currently serving on or for AOC. After the work session, the board would vote on a new order for appointment for the AOC spot. This work session and possible action would be added to the 4/25/23 agenda, and that is where we are now.
Thank you. That's what I thought. So this is specific to AOC. I do remember, I think it was Commissioner Buck, but generally we had a conversation about how we will sort of close some of the feedback loops around county boards and advisories that we serve on. But this today is specifically about AOC. Thank you for that clarification.
And thank you. And I see that is spelled out pretty clearly in the board assignments list that we all receive. Not stated on the actual agenda item, but it does refer back to this board assignment, which was made 2 weeks ago. So any discussion on AOC assignments? Commissioner Lovell.
Yes, sir, thank you. I was the one that put that board order in, and I was a little unclear about who had interest in this job. I know that there was an immediate motion made by Vice Chair Trieger to nominate Commissioner Buck for the job, and then you had mentioned that you had thought maybe you were interested in the job. So to me, I wanted an opportunity for us to ask as a board if there were more than one party interested in the job and maybe some reasons why, and just to get some clarity on a position that we as a board would take with that person that would represent us. So if this is a time to discuss that and ask questions, I'm ready.
You have the floor.
Thank you. I'd like to know if there is, Commissioner Buck, I understand, are you still interested in this job?
I am no longer interested in this position.
Okay, so, and then Chair, are you interested in this position as well?
I am buried with assignments. So I had intended to vote in favor of Commissioner Buck if that motion came up again.
Well, I have the same sentiment, so it kind of puts us at an awkward stand here of now we have the position still opened and no one wants it. So I think maybe we should consider tabling this for another appointment or another meeting, and so we can continue forward, or we leave it vacant, because I think the other, I'm speaking for myself, and I've spoke with the chairman and the executive director of the AOC just this last week at County College, and I think that position needs someone with a little more governmental expertise than myself as I hold right now, so I don't feel I'm qualified to fill that position.
Very good. Further discussion? So we can table the item, or we can, I could entertain a motion. Does anyone have a motion?
No, Chair, I was just going to say, I was looking forward to Commissioner Buck being nominated to represent our rural communities, but I understand all our workloads.
And so if nominated, you would not accept the nomination. If elected, you would not serve.
I've decided that I really want to focus on the constituents within my district.
Yeah, and it is pretty time-consuming, particularly a district as vast as yours. Well, we all have big districts all the same size, but there's a great deal of work involved in it. Mr. Adams, did you witness Commissioner Burney's work on this particular board? I never did.
Chair Farr, I did not. I cannot give you a sense of the amount of labor he invested.
Mm-hmm. Nor do I, and I don't know who was, I don't even know who was assigned to as the board member from the BCC. Do you have any history on that prior to Commissioner Burney?
I do. Let's see. So I believe I have rosters dating back some years, and I believe we show Commissioner Burney on the 2021 AOC Board of Directors in that seat. We show him in 2020 as well. And then in 2019, I believe that is we show you, Chair Farr, as representing Lane County in that seat of 250,000 or more.
Excellent. Well, then, I should remember participation, but I don't believe I participated. So it must not have been something that I felt the need to participate in very directly. So can you describe, is there any way you can describe what the board does? Last time there was discussion that it was an important position, I believe, and that the Lane County's been unrepresented.
Indeed. So, Chair Farr, beginning on page 8 of the bylaws, Article 7 speaks specifically to the Board of Directors. Section 1 speaks to membership. It is notable that the 5 larger counties actually serve, those representatives serve for 2 years, whereas the smaller counties serve for 1 year. Moving down to duties and powers, which is Section 7, the Board of Directors shall have general supervision over all the affairs of the organization subject to the will of AOC expressed at any duly called meeting. The board shall appoint an executive director who shall hold office at the pleasure of the said board. The board shall formulate policies of AOC subject to the expressed will of AOC and shall direct the activities of the executive director. The board shall do any and all other things necessary to accomplish the general purposes of AOC. And that is the expression of duties. There's some additional details, what constitutes a quorum, voting protocols, duty, declaration of a vacancy, the use of alternates, or other details are here as well.
Very good. Thank you for that. So moving forward then, Commissioner Lovell, you suggested that it be somebody who has experience with AOC. And I would concur. So what's the pleasure of the board at this point in time? If the board meets, I would guess, on the Mondays of regular AOC meetings. My board meets on the Fridays, the committee that I'm on, and I sometimes sit in on the committees on the Mondays, but it's not something I do as a regular occurrence. So does anyone do that as a regular occurrence? Go to the AOC Mondays? Okay. All right. Well, it seems like we are at an impasse here. That being said, if someone were to make the motion from me to step into the role, and if it were seconded, I would accept that and fulfill that duty. So is there a motion?
Well, thinking.
Okay, think hard.
Well, I just feel like a county our size needs to have some representation, and I think the more we stumble over this impasse and talking about it, I don't know, maybe we should put someone in there and let them gain the experience on the way, someone that could actually show up. I think, 90% of governing is showing up. So I think maybe we should consider that. But I think it's important for us to have a representative there and to do it expediently and to participate.
Very good. Then, based on that, then you think it's all right to have one of the 2 new commissioners in such a position, should they be willing to serve? Okay. This is what we get for not passing the order the first time, right? This is the punishment that we're enduring. Okay. All right. So are there any motions? I'll entertain any motion. Then the item dies for lack of motion, and we'll take it up at a later date. Thank you. All right. Then we'll move along to Commissioner announcements. Commissioner announcements. Then I have an announcement. It is about Mental Health Advisory Committee. And I did attend the MHAC, as I have for the last 10 years. And it met last Thursday. We're still holding virtual meetings. The current chair is Dr. Grace Bullock. And the discussion was around the agenda included a legislative update, which I provided. Mr. Kylo was not able to be there for that. We talked about the work plan of the Mental Health Advisory Committee, but much of the discussion was around membership. And the committee itself is feeling a little bit unempowered, shall we say, and wondering how to move forward, because the last time they had a single recommendation, a unanimous recommendation from the board for a member, an additional member who was pulled because only one person had applied to the MHAC. Now, the discussion at the MHAC is that it's a pretty work-intensive committee, and between it and its subcommittees, most of the members are either lived experience or they have letters after the names as professionals. There are currently 2 openings on the MHAC. There were 2 applicants for it, so the MHAC was a little bit worried about submitting 2 applicants for 2 positions. So at this point in time, the MHAC does not have any recommendations for new members, even though the committee is working 2 members short. So that is the extent of my report on the Mental Health Advisory Committee. So, anybody else have any reports on committees or any other items from commission? Then we'll move into future board assignments. Vice Chair Trieger.
Thank you, Chair. Just 2, as we discussed this morning. The first one that was discussed this morning, we had a wonderfully full house full of babies and toddlers and mamas and parents, and it was just a delight, although the topic was not. And so, as I mentioned there, I'd like to see if there is support for directing our administrator to work with our Health and Human Services Director on the gap in midwifery services that are available to folks doing hospital births in our community, with a particular focus on the impact on our clients, and to work toward possible community solutions.
Okay. Head nods on that. Looks like you have sufficient.
Great, thank you. And then the other, we had discussed in the past, and I've talked with the chair and our administrator and Ms. Jones about our capacity to ensure the option for folks participating remotely who are giving public comment to have their cameras on, so we can have a bit of a fuller, more parity experience to folks who come here in person, and we can see the faces of folks. So I'd like to ask for a 2-part. One is head nods to proceed with that, which I understand we have the technological ability to do beginning immediately next week, but with an extra layer, which is that the chair and myself would work with our administrator and Diana Jones to identify if there are any parameters that we want to place on that, so that she or the chair or the vice chair or the administrator have the ability to ask for the camera to be shut off should there be any activities or anything on display that we want to disrupt in any way for any reason. So if we want to do those separately, we can do just head nods to getting video going, and then head nods to having sort of a subcommittee work group to just identify if there are any operating parameters.
I think that'd be one and the same.
Yeah. All good? Okay, looks like we have that.
Thank you.
Then, Mr. Mocker, I have an assignment for you, and mine is backed up with photographs. Can you see this photograph? Can you describe that photograph?
One of our speakers this morning.
One of our speakers this morning. Well, there were 2 speakers at the mic, and in this particular speaker, only one person spoke. But when this speaker was there, a couple of people spoke at the mic at the same time. And my assignment, Ms. Mocker, is can you make certain that we do have children at all board meetings from now on? And I won't accept no or head shakes on that one.
What you asked for.
That was absolutely, completely delightful this morning. The testimony was intense, and the testimony was on very, very serious subjects. But to have the children there, it gave it a sense of in some ways a sense of urgency, at the same time a sense of lightness. So it made the testimony even more appealing and direct. So you don't have to accept that assignment, Ms. Mulgrew. It might be a tough one, but I'll send around these photographs because I could not keep myself from actually snapping photos of the testimony with the children this morning. Very good. Then, Mr. Commissioner Lovall.
Yeah, thank you. Those were awesome photographs. And in light of that non-assignment that Mr. Mrokoski maybe didn't get, Commissioner Trieger would probably agree, maybe we should help this not be a daycare desert in this area, and you might just have been getting two birds with one stone there, yes? So I'd also like to explore any opportunities that we have as a board to support also the other parties that came forward this morning. The Friends of the Children, they do a great work. They're a crucial step to that street level to next service level that we provide as a county, but yet they're also one of the only organizations that stay with their people for 12 years and mentor them at very different stages of their lives, which I think is a super committed process to the needs of our county, and if there's any way that we could support them, I'd like someone to get back to me to know what that is.
Then do we have head nods on that? And would that be in the form of just a report by Vice Chair, Commissioner Buck? Question?
I just wanted a clarification because like so many of our nonprofits or, entities like that are doing such good work in our community, have they been directed to Health and Human Services where grants and that kind of financial support is available, where they can apply? Is that a known? I would hope that they've been around enough to know that, but if they don't, I mean, that's just really a direction from staff is to plug them into what resources the county provides so that they can apply.
I'm sure they've been down that block. I think their request was more specific to how they can partnership with the county in a larger way, like some of our other partners that we have that have been part of our pillars of how we support the community. I think that's what I'm really asking is if they can become part of that group, or at least investigate that part of that group, not just be another nonprofit, but be an integral nonprofit to the mission of the county.
And, Commissioner Lovell, that may come in the form of them identifying maybe RFPs that they would respond to or grant requests that they would respond to. And I'm not certain how staff would be able to provide that directly without a little bit more input from them. So perhaps that's something that we could do in discussion with their board of directors, perhaps. Talk to them about how they can look at county grants that are outstanding or RFPs that are in process that they could respond to and that their agency would be equipped to handle. Is that a way we could handle that?
Yep.
Very good. Then I think that may be a bit more of a board assignment as opposed to a staff assignment, Ms. Mrokoski, something that can be done internally by the board to talk to their board of directors and give them more insights as to what may be available that's existent, not something that's developed for them specifically. Very good. Any further assignments? Commissioner Buck.
I still need clarification on that last one.
Go ahead.
Because you had mentioned it was our board as in the five of us board?
No, I'm sorry. Internal as to board members, commissioners, if perhaps they talk to them independently to explain to them what the grant process is for the county and or the RFP. Because, a lot of our nonprofits have done it before and they know how to do it. Some nonprofits don't really have an inclination as to how to know when the county has potentially funds available for the next for any upcoming work that's being done. An example of that is when Carry It Forward came into existence, they didn't really have any internal process for applying for grants or RFPs. They kind of just asked for money independently in the community. Subsequently, they became pretty active in applying for grants and answering RFPs.
I think that's where I was going with my original comments is we do need, staff can reach out to them in whatever is the appropriate format to ensure that that occurs. So I'm not sure what the difference between the two is.
Yeah, one would be asking Ms. Mrokoski to have staff reach out, and the other would be board members talking to them independently. So Ms. Mrokoski, staff reaching out, is that something that you can see a pathway toward that?
I I mean, we could, I think I'm not clear exactly what staff, I'm not really clear on the assignment, sorry.
Vice Chair Trigg, do you have some?
Thank you. Maybe if this is helpful, because I appreciate that there are hundreds of nonprofits, and so I hesitate to put us on a path of asking staff to do that. So Commissioner Lovell, I would be more than happy to chat with you about how I've navigated and helped some folks make connection from the nonprofit community to this organization, and resources, partnerships, grants, and so on that might be available to them. Because that is, I really appreciated hearing their testimony, made sure to bookmark their website to explore it more, and I'm really curious, and that is something that commissioners do, is help community members, organizations navigate county government and help them understand where and how to stay updated, what are the opportunities. So I'd be happy to just chat more with you about how I've done that for some other organizations. And then maybe you can be that person that helps them facilitate a stronger connection to the county over time. And if after having done that, it's still not getting where you were hoping to go, you could bring it back maybe with an assignment that is more sort of appropriate or makes more sense to be directing staff to do. Would that work?
Super.
Great.
And Commissioner Buck, that fits in with your thoughts. So that is not an assignment for you, Ms. Morgan-Heskey. That's something that will be handled internally by board members in order to get more information to that particular nonprofit. Thank you. Any further assignments? Then, the only thing remaining today, Mr. Morgan-Heskey, before we resume executive session, is a review of assignments.
So I caught two there. For the county administrator, work with Health and Human Services to see how we can help identify opportunities to support the gap in midwifery services locally. And then two was to pursue video capability for virtual public commentors.
I would just elaborate on the first assignment to also bring back a report or information from H&HS about how or is this impacting folks who are directly receiving services through our, prenatal and other related care through our programs. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Then that concludes the regular business of the Board of County Commissioners. At this point, at the sound of my gavel, we will return to executive session from which we were recessed. I will not read us in. I read us into executive session this morning. At the sound of my gavel, we will adjourn the Board of County Commissioners meeting and reconvene in executive session at 10 minutes till 3.